thank you all for coming. Appreciate you all braving the heat to come out here today. So, I'm a painter. And what is a painter? I think basically at the heart of it, a painter is a storyteller. We're telling the story with a visual format as opposed to the normal written or verbal storytelling. And what makes a story? Or what makes a painting? I think a painter deals from several areas. He deals from his head, he deals from his heart, he deals from his gut, and he uses his hands. So those are the areas that are the things that make up a painting for me. From the brain and the head, you get the intellect, which comes up with the idea of the painting, the concept, the seed, the catalyst for the painting. From the heart, you get the emotion, which provides the painting with its soul. From the gut, you get instinct, which carries you forward. And with the hands, you obviously make the painting. So you marry the head and the gut and the heart with the hands, and you push paint around on the canvas, and hopefully the story comes out. So that's sort of the way I look at painting. Now, each painting, if you look around and I look around, paintings have different amounts of each of those items. The painting over here, called the Red Boat, that is pretty much instinct when I painted that. The painting, the Courtyard View, there's a lot more planning in my head with that painting. And I actually didn't even add the wrought iron work until the last minute. And I think that added a different look to the whole painting. The painting in the back of the orchard, that is pretty much heart and emotion. That's a painting that I did from my grandfather's orchard, memories of his orchard. And that's sort of where my story began, was on my grandfather's farm. I loved the place. It was like a fantastic place to visit when you're 8 years old. So I started doing this about 68 years ago. So I would visit his farm, and it was an interesting place. It was old. My grandfather was born in the house in 1867, and he died 20 feet from where he was born 93 years later. So it had a lot of history. It was always fascinated me. And I think the other things that it did, he was a very creative person. He was a farmer, but he was also a master carpenter and a cabinet builder. He could build anything. And I used to love going into his workshop with him. And he used all hand tools. And when he was building houses, he could build a house from the ground to the roof, do all the finish work, all the cabinetry, and he could do all that by hand. So he was really quite a creative character. And I think that's where I get some of my inclination to create something. Also, my great Aunt Rosie lived with them in the farmhouse, and she was one of the first graduates from the Columbus College of Art and Design, first woman graduates. So I think I get a little bit of my desire to do this from her. And lastly, when I stayed at the farm, it was wonderful during the day. There was a lot to do. There were chicken yards, there were corn cribs, windmill, a barn. You could run and have a lot of fun. Surrounded by fields, there was a stream. But at night, it got really dark because this was like a quarter mile off the road, surrounded by cornfields and hay fields. So I would come inside. Well, my grandfather, the only concession he made to the 20th century was electricity. He would say he had electrified the house. He had electricity and had 38 Dodge. That was the only concession he made. He never had a television. So I would come in at night and, what do you do? So I realized they had the Saturday Evening Post. So I would sit down with the Saturday Evening Post and copy the cartoons. And that's sort of my first experience with recording something on paper. So after that, I continued to paint. And I would paint, not just copy the cartoons, I would try to draw what was on the table, a plate, a salt shaker. I tried to draw the wood stove in their kitchen. So I did that, and during my grade school years, I always painted. I remember one of the big setbacks in my art career at that time when I was in 4th grade. I was drawing in the back of the classroom with my friend Brian. And we were drawing helicopters, and we were drawing tanks and war machines, and we had, guns shooting arrows down and hitting people. So at one point, my teacher realized what we were doing, and Ryan and I spent the next year sitting right in front of her desk the entire day. So that was one of the down things. There are always a lot of ups and downs in any career, and there are in art. That was my first experience with a downer. The second experience was probably, I was taking an art class at a college, and I'm pretty much a self-taught artist, but I have taken some classes. I was taking a painting class at a college, and the instructor said, well, you shouldn't even really try to do this. You can't paint. You don't have the talent to do this. Well, that only made me mad, so I just painted more. So I have painted my whole life. I got my degree in business, but as I was a bank manager, I painted. When I worked for a publishing company as an editor, I painted. When I moved to San Antonio and worked for the printing company, I painted. So I've always painted. Now I'm retired and I paint more than ever. So that's how it all started. So what are my influences, or who were my influences? I really have enjoyed reading and studying all kinds of artists. I love the Impressionist period. I love Monet. I was lucky enough in Paris to go to the Marmottan and see all of his water lily paintings. Just phenomenal. My favorite painters are probably the Post-Impressionists, Cézanne and Van Gogh, Gauguin. I love the way that they have treated their brush strokes. They're broader than Impressionism. I love the way that Gauguin sort of flattens color, shortens perspective. I love the broad areas of color. So those are the main painters that have influenced me. But there are also American painters that have influenced me. Edward Hopper is one of my favorites. Another one is Thomas Hart Benton. A favorite of mine because I love New Orleans. A painter from New Orleans, he's a couple years ago, was Rodriguez, who painted the Blue Dog. And a lot of you might be familiar with the Blue Dog. But prior to the Blue Dog, he did a series of paintings based on Cajun and Cajun life in Louisiana. And the paintings are just wonderful if you haven't seen them. We were in Lafayette one time, and this has been years ago, but we saw that they had a museum of his work. So we went to this street, and it was just a big old mansion on the street. So we went up and knocked on the door because there was no sign or anything. So this lady comes to the door and opens it up, and we walk in, and the whole house is just filled with these large-scale, massive paintings of swamps and bayous, accordion players, just wonderful. Well, we found out in talking with her, she was his ex-wife, and she inherited the house and all these paintings. So she came out pretty well with that deal. We bought a book and she signed it, The Blue Dog's Mom. Other things that inspire me or influence me, there's another painter in New Orleans called James Mahopoulos. Again, he does large-scale paintings. There's a lot of New Orleans scenes, a lot of architecture, and he's influenced some of my work as well. I think what really influences me a lot are children. Children, when they paint, they have such abandon. It's just, I love to watch it. And I will, on occasion, sit down in my studio with my granddaughter or my grandson, let them use my paints, let them use my easel, just let them go wild, essentially. So that is also an influence. I think watching them keeps the idea that painting is sort of play alive in your mind. And painting is play. And if it's not play, then it's not really fun anymore. It's not really doing what it should do. So what are my inspirations? Well, first of all, I had, in talking about the farm and everything, there's a portrait I did of my grandfather with the farm in the background.
Steve, where was the farm?
In Ohio. Central Ohio, yeah. We came from Ohio about 38 years ago. So what are my inspirations? Well, there are many. I like sports. favorite sport of mine is auto racing. I've always enjoyed it. Love motorcycles. Actually, one of the first awards I got in high school for art was a drawing that I've done of a motorcycle. So that's sort of strange, but that's one of the things I remember about all of this. Secondly, music is a big one. First of all, and actually today is the 24 hours of Le Mans, if you follow auto racing. So I've done a series of paintings of race cars over the years. And also in sports, my other grandfather, Casper, was a big boxing fan. I mean, he loved boxing. He would come home on Friday nights and watch the Friday night fights. He would sit in his big overstuffed chair, light a Camel cigarette, pop a Black Label beer, and invite me to sit with him to watch the Friday night fights. And it's still one of my fondest memories, strange as that may seem. So I did a series of paintings about boxing, which he inspired. And of course, travel is a big inspiration, which you can tell by this example. We have been lucky enough to travel to Spain and Italy, France and England and the Cotswolds. And also New Orleans. I love the music in New Orleans. There's a painting in this area from New Orleans called Street Corner Jam. And this painting is from New Orleans, the courtyard. And the one on the wall over here is called French Quarter Brass. Those are all from New Orleans. But I've always, as far as a process, I'm a studio painter. I appreciate, admire, and love painters who do plein air work. That's not me. I need my air conditioning. I need my music, my jazz, which I listen to always when I'm painting. And I need my coffee. Unfortunately, once in a while, if the coffee will clean your brush in it. I highly recommend Prussian Blue. It has a nice aftertaste. But I work mostly from photos. Every painting in here, with the exception of one, is from a photo that I have taken. When I take a photo, I'm really trying to compose a painting at the same time. I've always been that way. Traveling with me, as Sandy will admit, it's not always easy because people are usually a block ahead of me and I'm back here taking a picture or doing a sketch or something. But although it allows her more time to shop when we are shopping, I can more plenty of time. So I work mainly from paintings or from photos, and obviously they're not reproductions. They all have the ingredients we mentioned earlier, as far as heart and soul, and so they're very different from the actual photo. Most times, the painting does not end up looking like the photo I've taken. And I've got some examples here. This is the photo that I used, and this is probably closer than most of them. See the painting over here, courtyard view. And this is the one I used to do this painting. So it's sort of similar, but it's still not a reproduction, not a realistic reproduction of it. That is in Spain, in the mountains, on the way to Montserrat, which is a convent that has the Black Madonna. It's a beautiful, beautiful drive, a beautiful area. Let's see if I got that one here. Yes, this is one from the Cinque Terre in Italy, and it's the little one back in the lower one on the corner here. That one, yeah. So anyway, how do we come to postcards? Well, pretty much just what we've been talking about. Postcards are a way to share something that you love with someone else. Postcards are a way to remember things. And I think that's what these are. And I think, hopefully, when you look at these paintings, it might rekindle a memory of someplace you've been. It may entice you with a new vista, someplace to go. So actually, these paintings are all my postcards to you. sort of sums up what I have to say. I'm open to any questions, so if you want to fire some questions at me, that would be very nice. Yes.
So I'm a very happy collector. It's a wonderful person. So two questions. I am a great appreciator of Blue Dog as well, which was a real dog named Tiffany. So very inspiring just for that reason alone. So you feature so many people in action shots. Tiffany is very much about looking you right in the eye with those penetrating eyes, whereas you're very much about showing maybe people, even the backs of them, in action, which I find.
I normally try in my landscapes to put a figure in them somewhere. I think it does a couple of things. One, it adds some humanity to the painting. And two, it gives you sort of a visible sign of scale, how large things are, what the perspective is. So yeah, a lot of these paintings, the landscapes do have, and it's never an overpowering figure, but just something in there to show that.
Then my other question would be, Stephen is a tour de force of many talents, including poetry. So my two works that I have of Stephen's feature poems that go along with them, which really is just like another dimension of appreciation for that particular work.
I usually do those at 3 in the morning when I wake up. After I sleep.
So many would never do anything like that, and you do, and that makes you so different.
Oh, thank you.
In the best possible way. So I'm curious, would there be any poets that you're especially inspired by in your own work? Not to put you on the spot.
Not that I know, not that I can think of right offhand. There's a poet, what was his name, Sam, do you remember? Watch that.
Way to put me on.
Yeah, it's your turn. I don't remember his
I
name.
don't know, but you have to.
I've got a poem I'm going to read for you. More questions? Yes.
Prince Rodrigue's museum, was that right across from Borden's?
Pardon?
Borden's Ice Cream, was it the house right across the street from Borden's? Do you remember?
No.
Okay, Borden's is very old too, but his house was right there across.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. It was a great house, though.
You have very vibrant colors. Talk about your choice of colors.
My choice of colors, let's see. I'm partially colorblind. So, my choice of colors, that's why I like the Fauvist period down here. You're not tied in the realistic colors.
Yeah.
But I look at the tube a lot.
in your photos.
I look at the tube a lot. Or just whatever my instinct tells me. I don't think you're tied to realism particularly.
That's what it comes.
Yeah, exactly.
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
I too paint from photos, and I'm delighted to see the many differences that you go ahead and put in, with your, and I'm the same with composing, with my camera. I usually keep pretty much what I've got
Yeah.
there.
My paintings, I think of them in a lot of respects. As I said, most of them don't end up the way I originally think of them. So they're sort of improvisations. They change the whole time I'm painting them. Up until the very last minute, I'm not quite sure I've got what I want. But there's a point when you have to walk away, just stop. Yes.
Do you have a favorite medium or?
Well, these are all acrylic, and I've used acrylic for years.
Okay.
I've never had much luck with oils. I just recently, and this all started during COVID, started doing watercolors. So I've done some small watercolors here and here, and I'm continuing sort of in that vein right now.
You said you listen to jazz while you're painting, and jazz is about improvisation. So when you're listening to music, how much does the piece that you're listening to impact the speed of your brush stroke, the amount of paint you put on the surface?
It's
Because when you're driving, you got a good song on,
Yeah.
the speed picks up. So do you catch yourself, I guess, when you're listening to music? Because it's improvisation. Jazz is improvisation.
Definitely, I do it a lot. They're a lot different than these paintings. Like here's one I did of a jazz group. And it's it's really wild, there's a lot of movement in it. Yeah, I probably paint with quicker brush strokes when I'm doing that. I don't think about it as much. It's all feeling, more instinct when I'm doing those. Actually, this is a painting on a trip to France. We were on a trip to France, and unfortunately my wife was working, and I was out taking pictures and running around. Well, I met this gentleman on a bridge over the Seine. He was playing the bass, and I loved his work, so I started talking to him. Turns out he was from America. And he wanted to know where I'd like to listen to jazz. I said, well, New Orleans, Sag Harbor is the best place to listen to jazz. And he said, well, you know, I play Snug Harbor all the time. I'm in the United States. So it's a small world, you know, it really is. Patsy.
When you're traveling, besides photographs, do you do watercolor sketches?
I don't do any watercolors. I do a lot of pen sketches and sketchbooks. Like if I'm on a tour and I'm in a bus, I'm usually sketching just really quick, hit-and-miss sketches of the landscapes.
Can you take us through sort of quickly how you kind of approach or tackle the painting? Like, do you start with line or how do you design?
On the portraits I've done, I usually do a pretty detailed charcoal sketch on the canvas. And I used to do a charcoal sketch on the canvases for the landscapes. Recently, I've just done away with all that. I just go directly to paint and work on the canvas with paint, which makes it a little freer, not really tied into anything at that point.
Are you moving, Steve, around the canvas that you're painting, or are you working in
No,
that
I'm
area?
working all over.
Yeah.
I might change something here and realize, well, I gotta change all this too. So, yeah, it changes all the time. Anything else?
I know you've done several books with Sandy, illustrated books. Talk a little bit about collaborating with artists.
It's been interesting. It's been fun in the final analysis. I found it very hard to begin with because that was not really where my head was. Trying to maintain a character through 10 or 11 or 12 illustrations, for me, was very difficult. It's gotten a little easier, but at the beginning, it was pretty tough. But I'm glad we do it, and it's just another aspect. You know, the story is not over. It'll continue. I don't know what we'll be doing next, but I know there's another book at home waiting for me. So. Anything else? Well, if not, there are a couple things. One, Bruce, thank you so much. You have done just a phenomenal job running the show. I think all of the artists that work with Prudence wouldn't say that she has a great eye for what she's doing. She's a wonderful gallerist and a wonderful curator. When we started this, we were looking at what, 50 paintings probably? We were probably looking at 50 paintings, 40, 50 paintings, somewhere in that area. And along the way, Prudence would say, I don't want that one, or I don't think this one will work. And I would come home and I'd think, but I'm so glad that I let Prudence go ahead, because there's not one bad decision, not one bad choice, not one misstep in this entire exhibit. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. This is a beautiful exhibit. I'm just so very honored to have you here. Thank you.
I also want to thank Sarah and Ron and Nancy and Carl, Susan, and all the artists here at the gallery. They're all great support. They're all an inspiration to me. And I think the bottom line is that Prudence has not only created a gallery here, she's created an art family. That's much appreciated.
Well, I'm very honored by all of you all. And just thank you all for your support. Thank you very much for being here. And somebody mentioned jazz.
our separate ways. Laura had mentioned I write poetry. This is a poem I wrote after participating in the Ecumenical Center art show and sale, which they've done for 10 years, and I've been involved in it the whole time. Actually helped hang the first show. Art heals hearts. It maintains hearts. It soothes souls. Art is the creative expression of our humanity. Art is in the doing. A slash of red on a fresh canvas. Violence of the hammer to chisel on stone. A poet's first word on paper, conceived in a sleepless 3 a.m. A trumpet blaring, drums beating ancient rhythms. A ballet dancer's pain, a symphony's grandeur. A novelist's solitude, a platinum squeezing out its words. Art is in the experience. Viewing the painting, imaging your presence, touching the now smooth marble, conjuring unknown memories from the poem, dancing to the music, if only in your shower, living another life in a novel. Art can call the demons and also calm them. Art is for all of us, makers, viewers, listeners, professionals, amateurs, young and old. Our humanity requires it. Again, thank you all for being here.